Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Making Sense of D&O Coverage, Endorsements, and Exclusions webinar. I'm Marketing Manager Sherry Branson. I'm now joined by the President of Kevin Davis Insurance, Kevin Davis. Hey, Kevin.
Hey,
Kevin,
Sherry, how you doing today?
doing great, thank you. How are you?
You know what? I'm doing pretty good because guess what? It is a beautiful day out here in Southern California.
Yes, yes, and it's a beautiful day in Florida too. And I know, Kevin, we have people from all over the country, and the people in the Northeast who are thinking about you with that blizzard and heavy snow. And we hope you're safe and staying warm. And yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting month with the Olympics, Kevin. A lot
Yeah.
going on, and yeah, and we're going for the gold today, Kevin. We're going for the gold.
You know what? We always go for the gold, Sherry, don't we?
We do, yeah.
Every month. Yes,
Hmm.
yes.
Absolutely. Hopefully, we get a gold medal.
Okay, all right. Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
It was funny. It has been an interesting February in a sense that, you know, the Olympics, you watch the Winter Olympics, everything, but we have our own Winter Olympics now. You see the snow's coming in and everything like that all over
Yeah.
the East Coast and everything. And
Oh yeah.
wow, it's been something.
People snowboarding and skiing down the middle of the street. And
Down the
somebody
middle, exactly.
New York City, I had a friend put a video up of it, just like no cars, nothing in the streets, people
Yeah,
skiing, and
yeah,
kids sledding. I mean, just the whole city just shut down. It's just
mhm,
incredible. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
They haven't seen anything like it in a long time. It's
That's
been,
right. Yeah.
yeah, very busy winter up there. Very, very busy. And today, Kevin, we're kind of taking a deep dive today into endorsements, exclusions. We're going to talk about some things that we've never talked about before in prior webinars.
Yeah, and the reason for that is that there really is no standard D&O policy out there. So we need to do a deep dive into the exclusions, the endorsements that impact your D&O policy, and which ones should not be on there. I mean, if you think about it, you know, there are package D&O policies. You get D&O for condos. You get a for-profit D&O policy that every corporation gets. You have a nonprofit D&O. So you have all these different types of D&O. And since there's no standard one, what we're going to do is pull the thing apart, the magic apart, and do a deep dive and say, okay, if you have a D&O policy, these are the things, the most important things you need to know to make sure you have the kind of coverage you need for your community association.
Absolutely, absolutely. I did want to take a second to mention that I record all of the webinars, and the recording will be on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/kdisonline.com. So you can listen to the recording there and all of our past webinars as well. I'll also be emailing out the slides and the recording a few days after the webinar once we download the file. And if you have any questions during the webinar today, feel free to type them into the questions box. And if we have time, we'll answer all of the questions at the end. Don't worry if we don't get to your question. I can always email you the answer or give you a phone call. So, Kevin, so let's talk about, let's can talk about the endorsements and exclusions. And also you mentioned, the different types of D&O policies that people can get. And a package policy is one of them. So let's
And,
talk about the
and
package policy a little bit.
the package policy is most D&O policies are in the package. You know, it's cheap, and you get it with your property and liability. Now, the key thing about all D&O policies are three things. You have a claim against the insured for a wrongful act. That's what D&O means. So a claim is a written demand for monetary or non-monetary relief. So that means either I'm suing you for money or I'm suing you because I want you to stop what you're doing. Okay. And if you sue the insured is any board member, any volunteer, any committee member, employee, the manager. So it's people who are there making decisions. So you got the people who make decisions. There's a claim made against them. Either they want money or they don't want money. They want something to stop, okay, for a wrongful act. And a wrongful act is any error, misstatement, misleading statement, or any omission, any act itself. So you look at those three things, it's important to understand that it can be very, very broad. Now, the most important difference between a package insurance policy and a regular one is that first line there where you say, we'll pay the sums they become legally obligated to pay as damages.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When we're
Okay.
talking about a D&O policy for a community association, many of these claims that we're seeing does not involve damages.
Mm-hmm. Right. A lot of them are non-monetary claims, Kevin. People just want to have a dog that might not fit into the guidelines of their community, a larger dog or a particular breed of dog, or flying a flag in front of their house, that kind of a thing. So there's a lot of claims that don't, like you said, don't involve money or damages.
Yeah. And so if you have an insuring agreement that says become legally obligated to damages, you're already wiping out most of your D&O policy. So if you look at what a community association D&O policy would say, you know, you're looking at a D&O liability protects the insured against claim for a wrongful act made against them during the policy period. Doesn't say
Hmm.
anything about damages in the insuring agreement. Eventually said the definition of loss includes damages, you know,
Hmm.
and also so, but right now you don't want to limit your insuring agreement to damages.
Hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. Because community associations are so unique, like you said, the exposures are so unique and the claims are so unique that that type of a policy wouldn't necessarily cover a lot of the claims that we see happening in HOAs and condo associations because there are people involved and a lot of the claims are very emotional claims. They're
And that's
personal.
the point. And that's the point, Sherry. What we're looking at here is again, insured. Are you insured? That means you're a past, present board member, you're a committee member, volunteer, property manager. Did you have a claim made against you? Okay. That means either A, um, I want money from you. I want you to stop. And it's a wrongful act. And wrongful act is any act. It's any act. It's like your spouse getting mad at you because you didn't take the trash out. Your spouse getting mad at you because you didn't clean the pool. Your spouse getting mad because you didn't change the lights. All those kind of things are acts that board members get sued for. They're just acts. They're just acts. They're not anything. It's not a accident. It's an act. I didn't increase the assessments this year. These are all decisions that I make as a board member that are on purpose decisions. So that's why when we talk about exclusions, there is nothing more important than, what kind of exclusion you have under the policy.
Exclusions are extremely important. Absolutely. And it's really important for people to understand that's what we're talking about today. Understand what these exclusions are and what to look out for, basically, just to give valuable information to understand a D&O policy a little bit better and understand what impact can they have if your policy has a lot of these exclusions in it.
Okay, so when we talk about exclusions, the type of insurance I understand, normally the policy will say the company will not be liable for. And historically, one of the main areas we always have issues with is bodily injury and property damage. So historically, it was said the company will not be liable for bodily injury and property damage. That's how it's been for a number of years. However, it is now turned into an absolute exclusion. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, absolute exclusion. Now, this is the definition of absolute exclusion. Now, all policies are different. Some are absolute, some are the second one, which is based upon attribute. But let's talk about an absolute exclusion. Absolute exclusion says where any part of the claim is based upon arising out of directly, indirectly, or any way in consequence to involving, not involving, that is absolute, where any part of the claim. Okay. Now, that's important because we're talking about a D&O is a duty to defend, meaning that if you have one cause of action that's covered under the policy, they have to defend them all. So
Hmm.
if they say where any part of the claim is based upon arising out of attributable to, they have the ability to shut everything down. That is a
Hmm.
pure absolute exclusion. Now, we don't have a pure absolute exclusion. I wish we did, but it's not that pure. But that is a pure. Most of the times they'll say based upon arising out of or any consequences for. The
Hmm.
difference between the difference between those two are different. If I say the company will not be liable for bodily injury or property damage, what that means is that if my house burned down and you sue because the house burning down, guess what? There's no coverage because it doesn't pick that up. Now, if it says absolute with any part of the claim, that means now all of a sudden my house burned down and the board didn't repair it in a timely manner. The board didn't have special assessment done so that the fire shouldn't have happened in the first place. Well, that's part of the claim, so that would be excluded. The third way was based upon a rising out of this. But for the fire, there would not be a claim.
Hmm.
Okay.
Interesting.
So the second one there, based upon arising out of exclusion, is what you're going to see more than any other type of exclusion.
Mm-hmm. That's the
Okay.
most common. That's the most common.
That's the most common. Absolute, you rarely see absolute, but most of the times you will see based upon arising exclusion. Now, the best exclusion you can have is a four bodily injury property damage. That's not going to work because there's too many things arising out of that four.
Mm-hmm.
Absolute is the one that every carrier would like to have, but guess what? It's too restrictive. So it's based
Mm-hmm.
upon or rising out of. But for the fire, but for the water damage, you wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
have a claim. Okay?
Interesting. Interesting.
That's the key to
Mm-hmm.
the number one exclusion that
Mm-hmm.
happens in every single time I get a call. Why? But for the fire, but for the water damage, you know, but for the
Mm-hmm.
destruction, deterioration. That's why it has been denied based upon the rising out of. Okay.
Interesting. Interesting. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now,
Great information. Mm-hmm.
the next two, final adjudication exclusion and defense costs only exclusion, what they do, open the window up a little bit, okay, so that there's some defense costs. A defense cost only exclusion, final adjudication mean if I did something, if I violated one of the laws, if I violated rules, if I've been accused of being dishonest, if I was accused of embezzling, okay, you can't, I still get defended until the judge says I've been found guilty. That's final adjudication. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All
Mm-hmm.
right. So that's a key one because what happens is a lot of times these board members, what happens is that they get accused of certain things. They get
Mm-hmm.
accused of being dishonest. They get accused of getting kickbacks. They get accused of it of these different things. So
Mm-hmm.
it's the judgment or final adjudication adversely affect that individual. He gets defense costs. Now at the end, his final adjudication said you did it, everything stops, and you're on your own. You go to jail or whatever has happened. So so what we have here are two, the first two are absolute exclusions. The next two are not absolute, they're defense costs. And then it could be nothing else covered.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
Is,
Great.
is that
Great.
complicated enough, or what do you think?
It's a little complicated, yeah, but it's okay. It's good because we haven't gotten this deep into exclusions before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The different types of exclusions and how, when you're looking at your policy, what to look for, what to look out for, basically. We're trying to help people understand when they're reading it. And the insured, of course, needs, as much they need advice and they need to be educated about what they have, what their policy includes, which is really, really important. So if anybody has any questions about this, because we haven't dug this deep into exclusions before, please feel free to type your questions into the questions box and we'll answer them at the end or send you an email with an answer.
Okay. All right, let's go into the
Great
next
job,
one.
Kevin. That was complicated. Yeah. That was
Hey,
good.
every
Very
once in a while
good.
I gotta dig deep there. Okay. Let's talk. This is the most important one. These are seven most dangerous D&O exclusions to avoid for community
Mhm,
associations to avoid.
mhm,
Number one, and a lot of package policies do not pick up non-money damage claims. They will
mhm,
only pick up damages, claims that result in damages. And the reason why is because non-money damage claims are the cost of doing business.
mhm.
That's
And
all.
Kevin, you and I have discussed in prior webinars that the non-monetary claims are the most prevalent. They're really what we see most of all in a
Yeah.
community association, right? Because like I mentioned before, getting a dog that doesn't fit into the guidelines or a pet or an emotional support animal that the association might say, no, you can't have that pet, that kind of a thing. So those are really the type of claims that we see most.
And guess what? We're seeing them more and more because we're living in a world where people have anxiety towards each other.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
they have these issues, and because they have these issues, what happens is that they're not suing because I lost money or my unit decreased in value. What they're saying is that the board's incompetent.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
board did not, do their election in a timely manner. Instead of
Hmm.
being done in 30 days, guess what happened? It took 31 days. And guess what
Right.
happened on that 31st day? Bob in unit number 16, he goes to court. It says, Court, I said the board was incompetent. And guess what they did? It's the 31st day, and they did not file the election returns or did not file whatever it is. They
Mhm.
haven't done it in a time they said it was done based on the governing documents.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of them. And we're seeing people there just ready to go to court because the board failed to enforce the documents as outlined. They're
Mhm.
not asking for money. They want the judge to say, guess what? These people are incompetent and should be removed.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, they just want action. They want something changed.
Yes.
They're not happy with something and they want to change it. Mhm.
Exactly. The
Mhm.
second one is noise exclusion. See, people don't understand that you don't have specific noise exclusions in the policy, but if you look under the definition of pollutant, sometimes that word noise is in there because noise
Mhm.
is a pollutant. So look at your D&O policy you have. Okay. If it
Mhm.
does, if look at the pollution exclusion, and sometimes they sneak that little word in there, noise. And I tell you right now, people are tired of pickleball players.
Pickleball is now the latest noise
It is
problem.
so noisy.
It is.
Hey,
Yeah.
guess what? We're home right now. You're home. I'm working from home. You're working from home. And if I was in community association right now, I'm trying to do a podcast, right, or a webinar, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden I hear pickleball hitting outside. Guess what?
Mhm.
I would not be too happy. First thing I would do is go back and say, okay, where did they get the authority to put a pickleball course up there? Who gave them authority? Were they in
Mhm.
violation of the documents? And then guess what? I'm going to have a non-money damage claim against them.
Absolutely. Especially if you live right next door to the pickleball courts, you know.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
my neighborhood started a pickleball league. So the league that'll go all day, when you have a
Oh,
league.
uh-uh.
There's a
Do you have
park
the playoffs? Do you have the playoffs and the
playoffs
finals?
and a
Oh, wow.
tournament, and they have tournaments and
Oh,
it's a whole thing now. It's a whole thing. Yeah, there's a park near me that has a big tournament in July and they give like a big cash prize and thousands of people show up and yeah, it's a big deal. It's a
yeah.
really, really big deal.
And it's
hmm
very noisy.
Very noisy, very
Yeah.
noisy.
Mhm.
And Kevin,
Then,
what comes to just real quick, even like
sure.
noise that you wouldn't think of, I remember a claim that we saw years ago in New York City in one of the high-rise buildings where even an elevator, like a noisy elevator,
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
unit
yeah,
was next to this older elevator,
yeah,
and just
yeah.
the noise, and they actually the carrier had to bring in like test equipment to test the noise levels from the
Mhm.
elevator, and it gets complicated.
And it's very expensive. Very,
Yeah,
very expensive.
the
It's an
expensive
expensive
claim.
claim. A very expensive
hmm
claim. That's a good one, Sherry. Thanks. Bringing that one
hmm
up. The next one is discrimination. Be careful. If you have a discrimination exclusion in your policy, make sure it's removed. They put one in there because they say it's against public policy, against the law to discriminate. But guess what? We didn't do it on purpose. We didn't mean to discriminate. It's final adjudication. If the judge says, yes, you are a bad person, you discriminated, it stops. But the judge could say, guess what? The preponderance of the evidence says you did not, you discriminated, but the preponderance of the evidence says it wasn't done on purpose. The preponderance of the evidence, that means you weren't found guilty. So coverage can still apply. The
hmm
preponderance of the evidence is different than saying you were a bad person, you discriminated.
It
So
wasn't intentional. It wasn't
yeah,
intentional.
exactly. It wasn't
hmm
exactly.
hmm
So be careful. Discrimination right now is probably still one of the biggest areas that we see in claims because, again, you talk about bullying, you talk about harassment, you talk about all these different things are types of discrimination out there. And there's no such thing as protected class anymore. I mean, everybody can sue for harassment and bullying and these things. So it is not just it's gotten big and it's gotten nasty and it's gotten very, very costly.
Absolutely. Parking spots can be, somebody can
Oh
sue over a
yeah.
parking spot.
Yeah.
hmm
Mhm.
hmm
All right, the next one is employment practices. If you have employees, make sure you have employment practices coverage included in D&O. You don't have to go out and buy your own employee practices policy. It's covered under the D&O policy.
hmm
The next big one is insured versus insured. Now, we've been taught that you can't sue yourself, you know, but in a community association, they do it all the time. You
hmm
have the current board suing the past board because the past board failed to look at the reserve study. Reserve study says this is what you should be doing right now to prepare for
hmm
your roof so that when the roof is leaking, you have money set aside.
hmm
So the new board said, guess what? Now we need a special assessment because you failed to honor the reserve study.
hmm Yeah. So they'll sue the old board
Yeah.
and saying that they breached their fiduciary duty and et cetera, and they didn't take care of the building the way they should have, and that kind of a thing. And then it just can go on. And a lot of boards are hesitant to raise the fees quite a bit. And
Yeah.
pass a special assessment to get the roof fixed or get something, an expensive project done. So they'll just kind of kick the can down the road, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
expect the new board to take care of it, but that could be
yeah.
a problem.
I know because guess what happens? The new board gets in, they say the same thing. Go, wow, it's going to be expensive. I'm not going to be the guy who raises assessments. And guess what
Right.
happened then? Then the past board comes into the new board because the past board, guess what they did? They did reserve properly. The past board did put money aside for the roof, but the new board says, guess what? We got enough money in there for the roof. We don't need to do it anymore. And so now the past board is saying, no, you need to continue it. And again, it goes back to filing a non-monetary damage claim.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, next one, breach of contract. Breach of contract is excluded under D&O policies. And the reason why, because if I enter into a contract to repair, replace the roof, and all of a sudden I say, wait a minute, that's not what I wanted. I wanted a different type of roof. You gave me X roof. Okay. I'm not paying. Well, guess what? They receive the benefit of the roof. Same thing with painter. You paint your living room, you paint your den, you paint it, and all of a sudden you say, whoop, that is an off-white color. I didn't want an off-white. I'm not paying you. You receive the benefit from it. Therefore, you can't have coverage for that, but you can have defense costs for it.
hmm And Kevin, th when you end a contract, a lot of board members don't realize if they just decide to fire that painter or fire the landscaper or just, fire them mid-contract
Yeah.
without speaking to an attorney or getting some kind of legal advice, then that could be a big, big problem.
Yeah. 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 And the last one is watch out for prior acts, coverage, not coverage. Make sure you understand what it is because there's always some way that prior acts has to be addressed. No, a D&O policy is a claims made and reported policy. That means the claim has to be made and reported during this 12-month period.
hmm
So the question is, when did you know about it? When did you know about the act? When did that wrongful act occurred? You know, when
hmm
did Andrew take those trash cans and made them late again,
hmm
what date did that happen? That's the key things in terms of what we want to do, you know.
hmm
Um, if that happened 6 months ago and he had knowledge of it, there's knowledge out there, then it won't be covered. So it's
hmm
key to understand that prior acts out there. Understand what prior acts covered, what prior acts is not covered. So
hmm And
how do
again,
we
if
do?
anybody has, we're doing great, doing great. Yeah, if anybody, again, has any questions about any of these exclusions or wants to ask something at the end, feel free to type your question in the question box. And great, these are the most dangerous exclusions for associations to avoid. And we see claims in these areas all the time. Kevin and I've talked about a lot of claims related to these particular exclusions. So hopefully the policy that you have doesn't have them and you
Yeah.
know a little bit more about them right now. And now we're going to switch gears a little bit, Kevin, and we're going to talk about the endorsements.
Yeah. There are three types of endorsements there. You have the one that add or restore coverage, the ones that take coverage away, and it just modifies it a little bit so that it can give you some broadness of coverage but it just a modification so that it makes things less ambiguous. So let's talk about the ones that everybody likes, the kind that you add or restore coverage, The number one is defense costs for breach of contract coverages, or insured versus insured, or the things we just mentioned. Those are endorsements that add to the policy that provide more coverage.
hmm
Okay, that's
Absolutely.
all. They just
hmm
add more coverage to it.
hmm
You got defense cost additions outside the limit. They may want to say, okay, guess what? Instead of having defense costs inside the limit, we have a defense cost outside the limit. You may have unlimited. You may have just for a small portion of it. So these things you can add or restore coverage. That's
hmm
that's really important to understand what they are.
hmm And then ADA, that's a really important one, Kevin.
It is an important one because American Disabilities Act and the Fair Housing Act are discrimination claims you get. Okay, where you in violation of not having proper ramps, you're in violation of not having, physical spaces so we get easy access. And what happens is, again, if you were sued for those reasons, we can't build a something that says a benefit. We can't provide a benefit. We can't put a ramp in there because that provides a benefit. So all we can do is provide defense costs. So
hmm
if you discriminate, if you're not complying with the ADA laws, it's against the law. So we can't be penalized. The carrier can't be penalized. The carrier deal said, we'll defend you because guess what? You may not have known about it. You may didn't do it purposefully. But once you find out something you have to do, guess what? You got to put the ramps in. We're not going to put the ramps in for you. And the
Mm-hmm.
same thing with Fair Housing Act. Fair Housing Act is the same. Fair Housing Act is more HOA related and condo related, where the ADA is commercial. That means you have a lot of renters in there. We may have some other, but they both are in there. They both is really, really important. So glad you brought that one up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why the board members have such tough jobs because, they are volunteers, but they're dealing with federal laws like ADA, fair housing, which is federal, and then local and state laws as well. So they have a lot of responsibility on their shoulders. They have a lot of
Yeah.
laws that they have to follow and be aware of, and know about. Hmm.
Yeah. So let's go to takeaway coverage. Takeaway coverage is really fascinating area because most people don't acknowledge that until it's too late.
Hmm.
The complaint I get the most is, well, what do you mean you put a retroactive date on there? Well, yeah, we're not going to provide prior acts coverage because they had a claim 6 months ago, and we're afraid that there'd be claims arising out of that claim. So we're putting a
Hmm.
retroactive date. We won't pick up anything that happened before those dates, which is a prior acts date, similar to a prior acts date. So
Hmm.
that's that first one. You as long as they say we're going to have a retroactive date or a prior acts date, they got to let you know these things because they're acts that could have occurred that you have no knowledge of. And that's the key thing here. If you have no knowledge of a claim, is one thing, but if you have knowledge that these things occurred in the past, a retroactive date could apply.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm. Okay.
The second one is developer exclusion. A lot of D&O policy will not provide coverage for the developer because the developer is the one who got him in trouble to begin with. The developer was the one who set low expectations in terms when it comes to assessments. They say, guess what?
Hmm.
Assessments are pretty low here. They're great. Don't worry about it. And as soon as the new board gets in, they have to raise the assessments because it is not to the standard it should be. And guess what? They want to do is hold the developer responsible. Then later on, the developer gets sued for construction defects and a lot of other reasons. So they don't want him covered under the D&O policy.
Hmm. That makes sense. That
Yeah.
makes sense. And it seems like they all do that. They all start out with very low fees, very low
Yes.
fees. The developers
Mm-hmm.
start at very low.
Mm-hmm.
They sell a lot of
Mm-hmm.
condo units or homes, and
Mm-hmm.
then down the road it gets raised, and then the problems start.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. The next one is individual exclusion. This is the one that gets people in trouble because everybody has, not everybody, a lot of associations have that one person in there that's a pain. The one
Hmm.
who's going to wait that 31st day that said, wait a minute, you did not send out the ballots. You didn't send out the notification in a timely manner. I got you. You guys are incompetent. And they have that guy. They have that person. And so what
Hmm.
we do, and some of our other competitors do, we'll have an individual exclusion. We will say person X is, if we'll provide the coverage, but if person X brings a lawsuit, guess what? There's no coverage, an individual exclusion.
Hmm. Yeah, there's always one person in every community, Kevin,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
person with a lot of time on their hands. And I remember in New York, and there was a situation where somebody would actually go from building to building to check on ADA compliance.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
with wheelchair, with ramps and things like
yeah,
that,
yep.
and
Hmm.
he was just that he was retired. He had a lot of time on his hands and just kind of went around and filed,
Yep,
and
yep.
yeah, that was his mission.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And the next one is pretty much the same, it's similar, amenity specific exclusion. We don't want to pick up any claims from the pickleball court. You know, any claims arising out of it directly or indirectly as a result of all that stuff,
Hmm.
we don't want to cover it. So
Yeah.
that means, but for the pickleball court, we would not have a claim under this policy. Okay?
The poor pickleball court. Yeah,
Pickleball.
yeah,
So
they're popping up
yeah,
everywhere too.
yeah. So that's an amenity specific exclusion. And the big one there, the new ones are regulatory exclusions. Regulatory exclusions are different states are saying, guess what? From now on, you have to have reserve studies. For now, when you have specific types of amenities. Yes, different types of things you got to do to your association. When the states are coming in, Florida's done it, California done it with balconies, New Jersey has done it. They have state-specific rules that have to be applied. The number one thing that we're seeing in reserve studies, a lot of states are saying you have to have reserve studies
Hmm.
and you got to have them. And a lot of people are ignoring them. you may start seeing regulatory exclusions that says, guess what? If civil code XYZ says you have to reserve study, you don't have it, and you sued because of it, we're not going to pick it up. But for that reserve study, there would have been no claim. Therefore, we're not going to pick up this kind of claims anymore. That's a
Mm.
big one, and that's a new one. You'll probably see more and more coming down the road.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, especially
Yeah.
what's going on in Florida right
Yes.
now, in New Jersey and California, all over the place. I mean, the regulations are changing really like every few months.
Yeah.
There's new laws that are being passed, and reserve studies are more important than ever. That makes a lot of sense. Okay,
Yep.
so that's a new thing we've never talked about before,
Yep.
regulatory exclusions. That's good to
Mhm.
know. Great. And now
Okay.
we talk about endorsements a little bit more. Modify how coverage operates, separate limits for specific claims. Let's talk about this a little bit, Kevin.
Yeah, because what happens is you can get special kind of claims that says, okay, wait a minute, we're not going to give you $1 million a loss. We're going to drop it down to a quarter of a million. You
Hmm.
know, ADA is a perfect example. Wage and hour is something like that. Sometimes you might see a breach of contract limitation that won't be more than, 100,000, a quarter of a mil. Because
Hmm.
even though defense costs only, you had these situations where, wait a minute, we had a situation where a cell site was established in the middle of a community association, and the contract was worth a lot of money. And what happened, the people who lived there said no, they were afraid of getting cancer and hearing loss and all this kind of stuff. So they said, hey, you got to take it down. Well, I guess it costs a lot of money to put it up there. So that judgment in there was way over $1 million just defending it. So sometimes you want to put a sub limit on there for certain types of situations.
They can get expensive very quickly,
It gets expensive
especially
very
something like
quickly.
that.
Yep. So that's why you put specific limits. Most of the times, your limit on the D&O policy is probably a million, but sometimes you might see a sub limit on there. Be
Hmm.
be aware, be on top of it. If there's any sub limits, you got to know about it.
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely.
The next one, extended reporting period. These are claims made and reported policies. What that means is that once the policy comes up for renewal and the carrier fails to renew because of claims or any other reason, you need to take out the extended reporting period to report any claims that happened during your policy period. So be careful. Take it if you lose coverage. If your policy is non-renewed or canceled, check and see if you need extended reporting policy just for any claims that have to um, take care of for you. Something has popped up on my Microsoft here. So yes. Okay. Anyway, so that was the next one. The next one's really interesting. Failure to maintain insurance coverage. Um, that's been one of those endorsements that's always been on D&O policy, failure to maintain
Yes.
insurance.
Seen
Okay.
that for a long time.
You've seen
Hmm.
it for a long time. Sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't show up. If they show up, don't worry about it too much because it is something that but for the property damage, there would be no coverage. So if you have a failure to maintain insurance and you don't have enough property insurance, the likelihood of you getting a claim under it would be great anyway. It still wouldn't matter because that property damage exclusion is so solid and it's not absolute, but it's almost absolute. So be careful of that. And then you have a hammer clause. Hammer clause is where, wait a minute. That's when we come in, the carrier comes and says, wait a minute, we're going to pay you $50,000 to settle the claim. You got to settle the claim. And Sherry, you go, wait a minute. No, I don't want to settle this claim. I want to fight it because I believe the plaintiff is wrong. He's accusing me of doing something wrong. He's accusing me of not following the documents, not doing it in a timely manner. I want to fight it. Well, the hammer clause says, okay, well, you can fight all you want to, but the most we're going to pay is $50,000. That's a hammer clause. So what
Hmm.
happens now, sometimes it's softened, sometimes it's negotiated ahead of times, but these are things that inside the D&O policy that we talk about. It's not doesn't impact coverages as much because it's just things you got to understand. Um, but you got to understand endorsements because at the end of the day, endorsements are there for a reason, just like exclusions are there for a reason to modify or change coverage. So.
Hmm. Absolutely. The insured is going to have a lot of questions as things come up and, potential claims come up. It's good for you to know what the endorsements are, what they mean, and you can explain it to the insured that much better.
Okay, what
And
we got next? Oh,
now
okay, I
we're going
guess
to
we're
look at
done.
the insuring agreements for the broadest coverage, Kevin.
Yeah, when we talk about this D&O, again, we're talking about D&O for community associations. We're talking about the insured, a wrongful act. We're talking about these things that claim. All right. Those are the three key things in D&O policy. The other key things that matter are what kind of endorsements you have and what kind of exclusion you have. You got to understand them. And when it comes to exclusions, all they need to do is define what the policy will not cover and to what degree it will not cover. It could be absolute, it could be for absolute, it could be defense cost only, and a lot of different ways in there, a lot of different things we can do in that area. So you got to be
Hmm.
aware what the exclusions are. And the endorsements, all they do is modify the base of the policy. You're either going to broaden it, restrict it, or kind of just you should kind of just make it less ambiguous as it was before.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Great, great.
Mm.
Wonderful. Lots of great information there, Kevin. And we did have some questions that came in. We're just going to go to the next slide to talk about our products, and then we'll get to the questions in a second. Just want to mention that Kevin Davis, in addition to D&O, we have crime insurance, cyber risk insurance, and excess liability. So there it is up on the screen right now. And let's see, we're going to talk also a little bit about, let's see, our risk management helpline. Now, this is a great resource and a great tool for you to share with your insureds. It's basically 1 hour of free legal advice. If you think you might have, your insured might be concerned something could turn into a claim, they have a question about a complaint that a homeowner made, sent them an email, sent them a letter, made a phone call, that kind of a thing. It's a great hotline, a great tool. They're available Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The phone number is up on the screen. It's 855 548 8656. And it's 1 hour of free legal advice. So it's a great tool for you to share with your insureds. That's the risk management helpline. And then now we're going to talk about CAI a little bit, Community Association Institute. This is a great organization. Kevin's been a member for many, many years. There's the national, just in case you're not aware of what CAI is, it's a national organization that basically provides a lot of education, a lot of resources and tools for community people working in the community association industry, everybody from insurance brokers to painters, to risk management people, to reserve study companies, et cetera. And they have chapters in most states, I believe, have a chapter. So they're all over the US. And Kevin, you've been involved for many, many years.
Many,
CA.
many yes, served on the board of national, locally. I've done a lot of these things. So great organization. I learned a lot about community association from being part of CAI. And I'm also a CERM, a community insurance risk management specialist. There's about 100 of us out there in the country. If you want to know more about it, please contact CAI.
Absolutely. It's a great organization, great education, great connections, and great networking as well. If you haven't joined it, it might be worth it to check out your local chapter. And now, Kevin, you've been doing a podcast with Robert Nordlum and Julie for quite a while. Can you talk about your podcast a little bit?
Sure, I tell you, it is great. It's HOA Insights, common sense for common areas. And these are conversations we have for people who really want to know, they do a deep dive into community association living, how to really do a better job, how to be more effective on the board. So please, we've been doing it now for a couple of years now. And I'm Sherry, you and I are going to be doing one in the next few weeks. So look forward to
Yes.
working with you again. We haven't done one of those in a couple of years.
Yeah, looking forward to it. It's a lot of fun.
Yep.
I love doing the podcast. It's great.
Yeah. Mhm.
Fantastic. Great. Yeah, check out the podcast. You can see it on all the places that you watch a podcast. It's called Common Sense for Common Areas. And now, Kevin, okay, we've got a few questions that have come in.
Okay. What we got?
Yep, we've got Colin Prudente. Thank you so much, Colin, for your question. Can you give an example of a non-monetary damage claim? Great question.
Oh, sure. Non-monetary damage claims are the ones we see. It is when I don't agree with Sherry, who's the president of the association, that I should have to park my car in another place. I want to park exactly where I want to park it at, even though it's in violation of the documents. So most of my non-monetary damage claims involve the documents where I ignore the documents. I'm going to use the pool 2 o'clock in the morning, even though I'm only allowed to use the pool up to 10 p.m. I believe the rules out there are biased. I believe the rules out there are not in my best interest. So yes, I don't like it. I'm going to sue. I don't want money. I ain't suing for money. I want the judge to say that Sherry, as the president of that association, is incompetent. So
Okay.
whenever you are make a claim against a board member, um, for anything other than money, that is what that is. So,
Mhm. Okay.
okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Colin. Thanks for your question. And now we have a question from Timothy Chapman. Thanks, Timothy. Please elaborate more on examples or prior acts and how that works.
Oh, okay. The D&O policy is a claims made reported policy. So Sherry parks her car in visitors. I tow it away. Now all of a sudden Sherry gets mad and she sues me because I didn't have the authority to tow her car away. I buy a D&O policy, and now all of a sudden I have a D&O policy in effect from January 1st of 2026 and January 1st of 2027. So now all of a sudden the claim comes into me where I'm the president of Sherry, I'm the president of the association, and I'm submitting a claim into the carrier. The question is, when did the claim occur? Okay. When were you notified? And when were we notified? The claim has to be made and reported during the policy period. That's the key thing. Okay. If the claim was made outside the policy period before, that means it's not covered. If you had knowledge of it, then it's not covered. So it's a claims made policy, as opposed to um, a general liability policy is a occurrence policy. So if you towed that car away 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, or 6 months ago, it's covered under that policy. This one is covered this way. So you got to just get a little bit understanding of how this prior acts coverage. It's about knowledge. When did
Hmm.
the claim occur? When did
Hmm.
it happen?
And
Yeah.
did you know about it? And
Do you
did you
know
know?
about it? Yeah. When did you know about it? Exactly. That's what it is.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, yeah.
Thank you, Timothy. If you have further questions about that, I'll give my email out. It's sherry.branson@mwins.com. You can always send me an email if you want more information regarding prior acts. Great. And then we have an anonymous question that came in. I have a particular carrier that has given denials for D&O claims that have a basis of property damage, as expected. The same carrier provided defense under an ROR
Yeah.
for loss of use, stating
Hmm.
this was under property damage. I do not understand how this is not also denied. Maybe this is covered because it was not physical property damage.
Okay. No, okay. That's okay. Um, Good question. One of the biggest problems we have is that, okay, you go, but for the damage. Okay. Read it again. I mean, read the,
Sure. I have a particular carrier that has given denials for D&O claims that have property damage, as
okay.
expected. The same carrier provided defense under an ROR
Okay. Okay.
for loss of use,
Okay.
stating that this was under property damage. So I
Okay. All
don't
right.
understand how it's not also denied, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
ROR, when she said that reservation of rights letter, a reservation of rights letter say, wait a minute. I don't know if we want to pick this up or not, but we have a defense. So they're not saying they're going to cover it. What they're saying is that we're not sure because when you're suing because loss of use, okay, um, there's something else missing because it could be a situation is why is there a loss of use? In other words, let's say that because we don't know what the claim is about. What property damage may not have happened in her territory. You know,
Hmm.
I may not have loss of use because right now the gate is not open anymore. I may have loss of use because there's a special assessment out there that has been paid. There's a lot of things that we don't know, have enough information on. So it goes back, is it but for the fire or but for the water damage? Or was it but for the assessments? You know,
Hmm.
well, if there was no, it was about really assessment because I didn't collect enough assessments. I didn't pay the assessments because of it. So it leads a little more detail. It's that's why the difference between based upon or arising out of versus absolute. Absolute, where any part of the claim is based upon attributable to arising out of. They didn't use we most carriers don't use it that way
Hmm. Hmm.
because if you use that way, it's absolute, and there's some wiggle room in there. As long as there's wiggle room in there, you will get a reservation right letter subject to the property damage exclusion, and then they defend it until they figure out. So wait a minute, but for the whatever that property damage is not covered. So
Hmm. Hmm.
yes,
So not necessarily covering it, they're just saying we would need more information about this.
yes, we're going to
And
defend
then
it.
we'll decide. And then
We're
we'll
going to defend
decide.
it, but we will reserve our right later on that property damage exclusion.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah.
Great, great answer, Kevin. Thank you. And oh, James Clark would like a copy of the presentation. Yes, I did want to make another announcement. I'll be emailing out the slides, the presentation, and the recording as well, but it'll take a couple of days. You should get it on Monday or Tuesday of next week. We have to download the file, which is rather large. And Sarah would like to know, do you offer crime or cyber standalone? Yes, we do.
Yeah, we just
Yes.
said that.
Yep, we just said it. Yep, yeah. We offer cyber and crime. And Timothy has another question. Should we file? Oh, he just came up with a follow-up. So, would we file the claim under the term the claim occurred during? That's a good question. Really good question.
Um, read the question again.
Should
Let's
we
see.
file the claim under the term the claim occurred during? When the claim occurred during, you know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. The okay. Prior acts is this here. Whenever the claim happened, okay, it's when the claim is reported to the carrier. So you had a policy in effect from January of this year to January of next year. So now all of a sudden it's February the 26th. A claim comes to my desk. The claim comes to my desk because guess what happened last December? Sherry, you were at a party and you made a decision, about the assessments. Okay. And you said that, Bob in unit number six, who's on the board, you think that he is, fooling around, you know. Um, and so now all of a sudden, there's a claim made against you last December. Okay, claims made against you. Now the question is, okay, no, that's when the act occurred. The act occurred last
Yeah,
December.
December, last December, during
Last
the Halloween
December,
party.
you know, we're at a board meeting, right? Talking about increasing assessments, and all of a sudden you say Bob in unit number six, who's also on the board, is having an affair. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now Bob is really upset and he's threatening to sue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he's threatening to
Slander.
sue. Okay. Now, there's a couple things happening there. Number one, there's an act. There's a wrongful act occurred. That wrongful act occurred is boom. You said something nasty about Bob. Okay. Now, if Bob says, I'm going to sue you before January, then prior act says, guess what? You have knowledge of this lawsuit. There's no coverage. Okay.
Okay.
Now, all of a sudden, it's February. And now, all of a sudden, you hear, guess what? Oh, Bob's going to sue me. You're in good shape because a claim is going to occur during our policy period.
Okay.
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 So I'll do it one more time. So Sherry, you make a mistake and you
I make
said,
the
Bob,
misstatement in December. The
you made a
policy
statement
starts in
in
January.
December about Bob.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's fooling around. Now, 2 weeks later, if Bob says, I'm going to sue you because you shouldn't have said it, no coverage because policy is effective in January. If
Right.
today you say, guess what? I am so tired of that, Bob, because man, that Sherry, when she said to me in December, really bothered me. I'm going to sue today. Now, all of a sudden, it happened during our policy period.
Mm-hmm.
And now, all of a sudden, coverage could be applied. Coverage could be applied because it happened. A claim is made during our policy period.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. That makes
Okay.
sense. Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for your great questions, and thank you for joining us from all over the country today. And I'll mention one more time, I'm going to send out an email with a copy of the slides, and you'll be getting the recording as well. And I'd like to invite you to join us on March 19th as we talk about top D&O claim trends in 2026. So thank you, Kevin. Thank you for a great webinar. Thank you for lots of great information. And thanks, everybody. And we'll see you in March.
All right. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Take care. Have a
Okay.
great day.
All right. Bye.